Welcome back to The Square. I am your host, Curtis the Fifth.
And I'm Curtis the Fourth.
And we are back talking NFL football. Preseason week 2 is now in the books after last night's games. Did you watch Jaguars Saints?
No, I did not, unfortunately.
I will say Jameis threw a bomb in the very first drive. To me,
caught the highlight though. I did see that.
Okay,
play.
Hands down, New Orleans give up on the Taysom Hill experiment. Jameis Winston needs to be put in. He needs to be the QB.
Was he named the starter yet, or is it just that
he's as far as I know, as it stands right now, nothing has been confirmed.
Got it.
But I think today is the 24th of August. So, what are we? A week, 2 weeks, and 2 days out from the start of NFL regular season.
Yes.
Only, I guess we're 2 weeks in. No, we're 1 week and just a few days out from our draft, fantasy football wise.
Oh yeah.
So man, it's just
September 5th.
It feels great to be in complete NFL mode. But yeah, we're here talking AFC North preview. We want to just preview, as we have been with this entire series for this offseason, just looking at some key storylines, making some divisional predictions, and looking at some of the biggest moves this last offseason for these teams, and kind of previewing their season, seeing what storylines we need to watch out for, some key things from each of these teams in the AFC North. And we're going to go from there. So let's dive on into that. And let's start with the upstarts from last year, and who should have been Rookie of the Year if he would have been able to stay healthy. And I think that's kind of the number one storyline coming out of Cincinnati is Joe Burrow back for week 1. Is that confirmed?
Yes, he is back for week 1, and he's number 1 on the depth chart. He's ready to go.
Perfect. Won't matter because soon after that he'll be injured again because they decided to go wide receiver instead of O-line.
Absolutely.
In the draft.
Not so perfect, that offensive line, but yeah. I don't know how excited to get it for Cincinnati. Going all the way back to the draft, I have been just torn with the direction of the team. It's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, technically, because it was one of those, you could take Chase, but you're really going to suffer the consequences of this. And now, if Joe Burrow finds another major injury or gets massively hurt this year, and now he's damaged goods, and they have to go a whole different direction. And what was the point? Okay, I mean, you have a nice pair of receivers or a nice receiving crew, but if you don't really have the quarterback to protect, that's going to be able to execute the plays down the field with, it's not going to make a difference. So it's kind of putting the cart before the horse in a sense. Again, this is going to be an interesting watch. I think they're a very good team. However, I would be concerned being that they're coming off the injury that Joe Burrow just came off of. And now they didn't technically or quite, I felt, address the issue at hand, which was that offensive line and giving him some more protection. But I'll defer over to you.
No, I completely agree. I think that's my biggest issue with this team, with this roster as a whole, is you didn't address the biggest, like you said, the biggest issue was the offensive line and lack of pass protection. And quite honestly, the reason why you only won 4 games last year is because you lost your franchise quarterback due to absolutely dreadful offensive line play. It was the most obvious thing wrong with the team. You just drafted a wide receiver last year in T. Higgins, who had a great year 1. And you still have Tyler Boyd over there. I understand you want to do this whole reuniting with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Just put your franchise quarterback with his favorite wide receiver of all time, for him anyway, and trying to recreate something there that they did in LSU where, what did he throw? Almost 60 touchdowns that season. So I 100% understand why you go that direction, but to me, preseason week 2 was just the epitome of why you don't do that. I know he only had 9 plays, but you go out there, he has 3 targets, Jamar Chase does, and he had 3 drops.
Right.
And that happens. It's a rookie wide receiver dealing with the NFL speed and trying to get his legs under him, especially after a season where he took off completely due to COVID.
Right.
So he's going to have a little bit more of a kind of learning curve to the NFL and a ramp up to the NFL. So you have those issues, and then you still have the most glaring issue in having no offensive line. So to me, it's this. They've got home run hitters, but they just don't. I don't think they're going to have time to set up any real substantive plays this season. It's not going to. I don't think it's going to look pretty. I know head coach Zach Taylor. I don't think he's on the hot seat, just being that this is year 2 for him.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, Cincinnati, they might look to go elsewhere if they don't put it together. But I'm not really going to, I don't think, judge either Joe Burrow or Zach Taylor off of this season in last season alone, only because clearly the offensive line is the biggest issue for this roster. I don't think that there's any questions about that. Oh, also defensively, they're not looking too hot either. But offensive line wise, they literally I don't think they have a guy who would go start anywhere else in the NFL.
And that's on either side of the ball?
No, on the offensive line specifically. I don't think they have a single offensive lineman that would start anywhere else.
Possibly not. I mean, they went and grabbed a pair of offensive tackles, in the draft, but neither one of them broke into the starting lineup.
Yeah.
And again, you could give a little bit more depth to the offensive line, but again, are we really addressing the protection that he possibly needed? And I think they needed to address that that needed to be a shakeup off that line, and that did not happen
at all.
So
like you missed out on a bunch of guys this past offseason. You missed out on Joe Thuney. You missed out on the Eric Fisher sweepstakes. You missed out on David DeCastro.
Mhm.
Just you keep going further and further down the line. Orlando Brown trade happened, and I know it's hard for you to make a trade within the division. I get that, Baltimore being the team that they would have to trade with,
Mhm.
but still, you got to make some play. When you miss out on all of the free agent offensive linemen, and then you don't address it in the draft substantively,
Mhm.
and you decide, okay, we're gonna go in the direction of let's have a high-powered offense. Okay, let's just do whatever we can at this point now that we have the weapons, because I think Joe Mixon is a solid running back in the league. I think your receiving core, including Jamar Chase into that receiving core, you have a very solid receiving core. You have a franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow. I mean, the stuff that he did before he got injured was absolutely fantastic. I mean, he was having an insane season. They weren't winning games, but he was still putting up insane numbers, still making fantastic plays throughout those 9-ish games I think he played.
Mhm.
And so it looked good. It just was a matter of, okay, let's just go protect him now. And even when you have a couple of trades that have happened with offensive linemen in mind, I mean, the Bears just picked up Jason Peters. You couldn't make any offer to Jason Peters to come sign for you guys? Like, I just don't see where that disconnect is. Do they really believe that these tackles are that much of a difference makers? Obviously not. Evidently not, when you point out the fact that neither one of them have broken into the starting lineup on either side, left or right tackle. So substantively, they've made no real strides at fixing these offensive line issues.
Yeah, outside of, we'll retract one statement of outside of being Riley Reef was the only offseason signing. And
to me,
not moving the needle.
Yeah, it's Riley Reef. Probably the reason why he ended up signing with Cincinnati is because he couldn't get a starting job anywhere else. and I'm not trying to really take any shots at him. It's just he's good for depth to me. If you need a guy to come spell your interior offensive lineman, Riley Reef is a great guy for that. But I don't think he's going play in, play out. He's going to get beat, especially in this division where you've got defenses with insane pass rushes. I mean, you've got to face Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett twice a year. And I think Olivier Vernon's still there in Cleveland. You've got to end up facing Pittsburgh with TJ Watt. Like, how are you expecting twice a year to allow you mean you're just going to continue to get teed off on let Joe Burrow get teed off on 6 times out of the year because you decided not to protect him.
Right.
So I think we've ragged on Cincinnati enough in their because I just think that's one of the biggest mistakes out of any team this offseason. That was the worst non-move to ever make, is to not fix the offensive line here.
Yeah. It's almost it was an addition by subtraction in a very odd sense of just, let's add a wide receiver, but you lose so much on your protection where what are you really gaining at the end
and
of the day?
You're missing out on, I mean, and when you go with Jamar Chase, again, I understand the thought processes as to why you would want to do that, but you have to weigh for your roster in your organization as a whole. Okay, we add Jamar Chase. It really pleases Joe Burrow to have Jamar Chase, another weapon that he can go to, another guy that he already has great rapport with. It's not going to take too much time for them to rebuild that chemistry back together. 100% understand all of that. You get a guy and you really please your franchise quarterback with this. Cool. But you have to weigh that against the option of either Rashawn Slater or Penei Sewell, who are guys that are generational offensive linemen in this draft, and you just decide, nah, we're fine. We'll kick the can down the road. And you're not gonna those guys don't come around every draft. Like, you don't always hit on offensive line talent in the draft. And you had 2 home run hits that you could have chosen there. And for all we know, Jamar Chase, I mean, based off of this last week, 3 targets, 3 drops, that could be his career. Maybe after taking a year off, he can't find his legs again in football. I don't expect that. I'm not saying that that's going to be what happens, but you took a real risk going with Jamar Chase, overtaking the safe, and honestly, the better bet is to what would actually help your team win more games, is going with a guy like Penei Sewell at 5 and really shoring up one side of your offensive line to at least make sure that he's not getting blindsided and hit in the back of the head by an errant Khalil Mack or an errant TJ Watt twice a year, or Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who just came over to Cleveland now. Or sorry, that was that's Cleveland. Jason Oweh is in they drafted Jason Oweh in Baltimore. Like these guys are coming to absolutely take off the heads of all of the quarterbacks in this division. That is 100% what they're doing. And Baltimore in Cincinnati doesn't have a pass rush to kind of counteract that, and they really don't have an offensive line to counteract it. Whoever the GM is there, it just seems like that when you're looking down the road at the time of the draft, as it stands now, like no matter which way you try to look at this, I don't see where the value of going for Jamar Chase is greater than the value of going with either Rashawn Slater or Penei Sewell.
You don't. And this is where, this is where football and analytics stop and where politics begin. And that's what happened here,
Politics or just Cincinnati
but the PR
ineptitude?
Apart from that, so we could just end the take on that. Let's just move on. That's a good stopping point. It doesn't even matter.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
It's just frustrating. So, but let's talk about their additions at least this offseason. Like we've stated time and time again, Jamar Chase, biggest ad here.
Yep.
Riley Reef, as you were saying, that is a big thing For some reason, they have him listed at left tackle. Did they change that? Because I was almost positive he was an interior offensive lineman.
Right now, they got him listed as right tackle. Yeah.
Riley Reef, to me, was never a tackle. Okay.
And both of their draft picks became guards. One is right and one is left guard.
Okay.
So.
And then they ended up adding Trey Hendrickson at D end and Mike Hilton. They did try to make some moves defensively to get better. And they also got Chidobe Awuzie. So
exactly, a couple of corners.
Yeah, they're really trying to make sure that they're not getting beat over the top for sure.
And and again, not to go into it and beat a dead horse. Apart from that first round selection, this team is almost primed to make that turn. But as you were so eloquently putting it out there and really taking your time doing it, and that was fine. That this can actually set this franchise back another 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons now.
Yeah.
Just based on a series of unfortunate events that's going to happen based on this whole scenario now.
You don't find offensive line talent like that. And the other thing is that you don't want to be in a position where you can get offensive line talent like that. You don't want to be drafting at 5 again next year,
exactly.
Which, based off of my prediction, I'm just going to say it now, they're going to be in that realm next year. Like it's just not looking pretty for this team based off of they took steps in the right direction in certain areas. Like I said, with getting Riley Reef, awesome, and kind of doing what you could to defensively address some of the issues that you had, especially at DB. But then you also lost veterans in AJ Green and John Ross, which John Ross to me is not that big of a deal. AJ Green truly is, even though he didn't play very much the last few seasons. He definitely did bring a presence, and especially as a mentor to guys like T. Higgins and guys like
Tyler Boyd.
And then I think the biggest blow is you lost left end Carl Lawson. That's massive to me. This dude, he week in, week out is a surefire going to get at least 1 sack.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what offensive line they're going. I mean, even if they were going up against now Kansas City's offensive line, I think he's getting a sack. It's just this dude is that talented, and you lost him. So, and granted, it kind of gives me the same feel as kind of the Raiders when they ended up trading away Khalil Mack. Only because they truly aren't ready to pay a guy like that. Because even if you do pay him, and you still have him on this roster, you don't have an offensive line to offensively be effective and be efficient. So, to me, I understand why you let him go, but still, it is going to be a blow for this team, even though you did get Trey Hendrickson in return. But is there anything else with the Cincinnati that you want to address at all?
Considering their debacle in the first round, I wanted to say picking up wide receiver Mike Thomas or re-signing Mike Thomas, not to be confused with Michael Thomas.
Thomas
in New Orleans, not the same guy, but he's definitely their number 4 guy. I'm only speaking to where their strengths are, because the only way I see that this works, they must gonna have a really a quick pitch count, hurry up type of style offense where they're just cranking out, trying to move the ball quickly, and a lot of short passes, a lot of guys you hitting in the slot. You got a lot of weapons on the offensive side with with your receivers. Of course, you got a Joe Mixon who can move the chain. That way, you're not overtaxing him. I don't know. Not that they were going to go into a run and shoot style offense, because they don't do that in the NFL anymore, but just something in a more frequently hurried pace, maybe a 7, 10-yard strikes, as opposed to looking just for the big bomb plays.
Are you expecting them to be one of the fastest paced offenses in the league?
No, I said I think that's what would be beneficial to how they're building their team based on the protection that they're getting. That he needs to get the ball out and get the ball out quickly.
Yeah.
As opposed to,
because I don't think Zach Taylor has because I would say if Matt Nagy was the head coach of this team, that would be a little bit more feasible, because he can actually scheme up plays specific to.
And that's why I'm speaking to the demise of this franchise.
Okay.
Because based on because this is what happens when you get a Jamar Chase. You have just now So, that's where that's where you're gonna put your strengths in.
And
no, they're gonna try to put it all on the shoulders of this
yeah.
average offensive line again, and that's gonna be a problem again.
And keep in mind, this isn't to take a shot at Jamar Chase for being lack
No,
of
not at
whatever.
all.
He's a very talented receiver, but again, he's a receiver. He needs somebody to get the ball, and the quarterback needs time to let the play develop, and they will not. They are going to be under. I think this is going to be a team that's going to be under the most pressure.
And
this Joe Burrow will be under probably the quickest pressure in the league statistically.
And right behind him, Joe Mixon. And it's going to work hand in hand where this offensive line, this is where you had to get it right. If you're going all in on Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, you got Tyler, you got the T. Higgins in here. Tyler Boyd has been that guy. He's that mainstay. But then you feel you're ready to make that turn and let go AJ Green, and then you replace it with, Jamar Chase, which will probably been the logical second choice, but your first choice needs to be addressed on protection. Moving on. I don't want to beat a dead horse. As I kept looking at their offense, it's built for that type of success. They're gonna try to, tactically work their way down the field. This is gonna come up. It's gonna be a problem because that offensive line is not gonna be able to hold for 4 quarters.
Oh, they do have a rookie starting at offensive line. I just pulled up their starting roster.
Who is that?
Jonah Williams is slated to start.
Is he? I didn't know he was a rookie.
Yeah, he
wasn't drafted by. What was he drafted?
Yeah, he was drafted by Cincinnati in the.
Not in the first 5 rounds.
Never mind. That was in 2019. Why does it say that he's a rookie this year?
I don't know. He's not.
Okay. Never mind then. Yeah, you're right. They're just
kudos to that website.
Yeah,
they misinformation there. Moving on.
As they just didn't update it. Just
some of them are like that.
Oh yeah, because they still have. Okay, yeah. We'll leave this website. Sorry.
Right.
No, it's just this roster as a whole. It's gonna be tough. And who do you have their starting tight ends? Because that's going to be huge to have, because they won't be able to be there in pass protection, but they really will need to step up their tight ends in the run game for sure for Joe Mixon.
Yeah, CJ Uzomah and Drew Sample.
So Drew Sample is still there.
Yes. Number 2 on the depth chart.
Yeah, that's tough.
They have a Thaddeus Moss in the wings. I don't know if he's going to be relevant in the next week or two, along with also a Mason Shrek.
All right, well,
yeah,
they're in peril.
As we stated, I think we overstated it now. So let's move on.
Let's talk about another sad team, Pittsburgh. Is this the end of the line for Pittsburgh? I'm just gonna come out and ask it. Are we going to? No, you know what? Are we going to see the first Mike Tomlin losing season?
Yes. Absolutely. This will be that. This is gonna be that year. They got talent. They have like veteran leadership, a lot of pride. One of these staples in the league. Just gonna be a hard out this year. However, it's gonna be a lot like last year, minus the They fizzled out at the end all of a sudden. It's going to show in the beginning through the end, where they're a team in decline. And I don't think they begin to start really addressing where they want to go as a football team until next year anyway. So with that, we're seeing, part 2 of what we started from last year, and it's just, the fall of Pittsburgh, and it's happening where they're going to, I think, and I really believe they're going to miss the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be a bubble team, but somewhere around week 14, 15, they're going to be, they're going to be in that talk. But then, between 16, 17, 18, that's going to be the end of that. But which I have very interesting. I'm at the wrong sheet, of course. So, yes, I have a very interesting finish of Pittsburgh. So
okay, we'll get to that in a minute here. I just want to first because I agree. I am not impressed by Pittsburgh at all this year. I know everybody's talking about the way that they came out and they played last year in their first 11 games. Yes, they started 11-0, but again, like you said, the way they finished, they lost 5 of their last 6 games. And if we really look at the one win in that span, they should have lost that game to Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Indianapolis had them dead to rights in the first half, and God damn it, Phillip Rivers fell apart.
They did.
If they had any other quarterback in, Indianapolis wins that game. God, go get Jacoby Brissett back and play him because he would have won that game. But man, they had them dead to. They were up by, I think, 3 possessions at one point.
Yeah, it was unfortunate.
They had no business being in that game at the end.
No.
And I will say that is credit to Ben Roethlisberger in that game. I will give him credit because he did keep that offense in there. He really went heavy on Deontay Johnson, and you and Chase Claypool are going to bring us back because we all know they're double teaming Smith-Schuster.
And that's going to be the winning formula for every single game this season, which is going to be a problem because you cannot game plan. That can't be your game plan every single game. It really can't.
I think... And I will say, this preseason, I have been thoroughly impressed by Najee Harris. And I do, I think my pre-draft take on Najee Harris was, I don't think it was harsh. It's just, it's not something that I saw where a power back can be that dynamic. But he's from freaking Alabama. I can't argue it. It's just, he's that good. But I do still believe, even though news just comes out, Travis Etienne has a foot sprain, and now he's more than likely out for the season.
I didn't want to bring that up. I was just like, yeah, leave it alone.
Well, he is my favorite running back out of this draft, and now we won't even be able to see him in that dismal Jacksonville offense. But that's neither here nor there. Najee Harris, though, I do think he's going to be in contention for Rookie of the Year. I don't think he's going to win it because the offensive line he's behind is just dreadful.
Yes.
I mean, let's go over what they lost. I mean, because I think their only key addition is Najee Harris in the draft. I don't know if you have more that you think are noteworthy.
I had a couple. I mean, they're not gonna move the needle for you, but just a few. Offensive line, Joe Haig. Haig, I can't really say his name right. I know. I told you that. But any offensive line help.
He's not even starting on this offensive line.
No, I know.
And that's the issue. Like, this offensive line is that bad.
But hold on. But you so quick to want to say he's next in line. He's number two right tackle. Zach Banner has already got a questionable tag on him. So I'm like, and he's in. So
he can't even beat a guy who's questionable.
He's in ground central for next man up with Mr. Mike Tomlin. So get out of here. He's the next man up. I'm like, okay, today you want to clown him? Sure. Ha. Week 2, he's gonna be starting.
He's gonna be clowned when Myles Garrett just absolutely bull rushes this dude into oblivion. In what?
Gotta be him.
Because Myles Garrett's going to be picking on him. That's what's going to happen. Myles Garrett is not going to stay on one side. He's going to be okay. Where? What's his name again?
Joe
Haig.
Haig.
Whatever.
AEG.
Joe, I'm following you all day long. Whatever side you're on, that's the side I'm on.
Wow. Why you just feel like picking on somebody today? Okay,
their offensive line, and I'm sorry, Joe. You're on a very bad offensive line, and I will say they do have weapons, like we stated. Deontay Johnson, I think, is a solid number 3 wide receiver. Chase Claypool still remains to be seen if he can bust out and be maybe a number 1, possibly a solid number 2. And we all know what our take on Juju is. He is the number 2 of number 2s, and they're really trying to make him a number 1, which I don't think is going to be the case. Now, he is on a 1-year deal, so is he going to get a bigger deal with Pittsburgh next year? Is he going to be looking to get out of this Pittsburgh situation next year? As I hope this is Ben Roethlisberger's last year. I really don't want Ben Roethlisberger's legacy to be I played for way too long, because I think he should have been done 2 years ago.
And I think many people will agree with kind of that take that Ben should hang this up. With that, taking we went through their weapons and they did just have a big pickup that I thought that would help, which is running back Kalen Ballage.
Okay,
because that's adding even more depth to, because there's been some there's already been reports out there they're kind of down on Benny Snell, and he's almost like non-existent.
They were down on Benny Snell when Le'Veon Bell was still there.
And then and then now there's some rumblings that Anthony McFarland has been making some strides, but then you bring in and now I'm hearing they got a Kalen Ballage signing. They have a really solid running back core that's going to take pressure off this Ben Roethlisberger really trying to throw for 400 and 500 yards unnecessarily, trying to keep them in the game, winning 41-43 or something crazy. Okay, they're good for a game or two like that, but beyond that, this is what I mean by they're going to miss the playoffs, because this team is obviously not balanced. Whether it needs to be from the improvements of the quarterback to this offensive line that of course has been decimated. I have to question the mindset of Juju Smith-Schuster right now, and
for sure,
and winning and what it is. I don't even want to get into the psyche of that right there. I just think that's, I don't know. I'm not big on that pick, and you still got Eric Ebron out there, but and maybe he's going to be maybe one of the most important people to the offense, because Ben Roethlisberger may need a quick target to hit.
Is Vance McDonald still there?
He is not.
Who's their backup tight end?
Pat
Freiermuth.
Yeah, Freiermuth and Zach Gentry.
Okay.
So it's we're looking at it, and I mean I know that has a lot of talent coming out of those wide receivers, but again, almost similar to what we were talking about in Cincinnati, it's going to be about that offensive line. I think this offensive line is a lot better than Cincinnati's line. However, considering the Pittsburgh seems to be playing more in high stakes NFL football as opposed to Cincinnati,
True.
in the same league, in the same division. But with that being said, it leaves Pittsburgh, it's for them to compete with the Baltimores and now the Cleveland Browns, just in your own division, let alone, branching off into the other divisions in the conference, that's going to be a glaring, spotlight on that offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, I think their two losses on the offensive line they were their two biggest strengths on the offensive line that they lost in David DeCastro and Alejandro Villanueva. Mm-hmm. You just can't lose guys like that, especially the fact that David DeCastro is only 31. Mm-hmm. Like, this dude can play another 4 years. Why are you not giving him a contract? Why are you restructuring Ben's deal and not restructuring David DeCastro's or extending David DeCastro?
Right.
Especially when you're going and drafting a guy like Najee Harris. There's questions there that just those things you really can't defend. It's just, you lose those guys on the offensive line, and not to say that this defense is going to be bad. I do think, though, it is very underrated what happened this offseason to this defense. They lost two key linebackers, in my opinion, that I don't think we're talking enough about. They lost Avery Williamson, who inside linebacker, definitely a playmaker on this defense last year. And then they also lost Bud Dupree, literally their rock outside of TJ Watt. Mm-hmm. Those are two massive losses that I do not see us talking anywhere near enough about, because yes, they do have TJ Watt. He is going to be a force. He is going to be a guy who's going to be a game wrecker week in and week out. That's hands down. That's TJ Watt. That's just Watt brothers in general. They are going to mess up a game for you. You will not be able to stick to your game plan when you're playing a Watt brother. But at the end of the day, if it's just him on the pass rush, it's not going to be looking ready. And I know they have guys like Joe Hayden in the backfield, DB wise, and Minka Fitzpatrick as well. the loss. I don't know how this defense is going to adjust really to losing a stalwart or a captain or a leader on this defense like Bud Dupree. Like that, I think that's a criminally underrated move that happened this offseason.
Yeah. I don't have much to come behind that because, like I said, this is Pittsburgh in decline. And I think this should just take two right now, and we're seeing the sequel. Because it's just that because this is the end of the road for Ben Roethlisberger, and it seemed like they wanted to just kind of send him off with this honorary year, and here I think we're looking at it right now and I think that's part of why Juju is there, and yeah, then this is an eroding defense. It's a team in question. Like, what is the identity of this team? Like, it doesn't have that steel or mystique about it, really. I mean, yes, it's a tough team to go in there, even if you're going to Pittsburgh, it's like if you got your head on right, and it's like, man, we could stay with them probably about our halftime. I think teams would be like, man, we could take these teams, and with confidence, like they're waiting for a big play to happen. They're like that boxer who is just waiting for that one big punch, just trying to land a haymaker, anything to try to change the course of the fight, but have really nothing. It's just that's it. Yeah, they're going to be a one-trick pony in a second, but I don't want to sit there and condemn the offensive line. I'll just say I have concerns, and I have a lot of them. I'm very concerned about that. So I don't, for an 18-week season.
Yeah, and a quarterback of his age with recent injury history, that's something you have to be worried about. He's not going to have a lot of time to let these speedy receivers really break open down the field.
I would say keep on the watch. Just keep it on the back burner. Dwayne Haskins. Just throwing it out there.
That was another thing that I did want to talk about. Okay, I think this is new life because I don't think Ben is going to make it through all 17 games of this season.
That's a very real assumption, and I can understand why.
Is he still listed as number 3 on the depth chart though?
As of right now, he is.
They need to move him up. Mason Rudolph is not it. And from everything that I've seen, and granted, it's just preseason, I get that. But even with Mason Rudolph running with the 2s and what I'm seeing from him, he does not have command of this offense, and he's been here for 3 years, 4 years now. It's been a while, and he just does not have control. And Dwayne Haskins, though, his issue was a lot of decision making, a lot of one read situations. He wasn't even able to do that, and he comes in there. Now he did take a very, very big hit in the Hall of Fame game. I'll give you that. But outside of that, and maybe a couple of plays here or there, the last 2 weeks, year 4 for Mason Rudolph here. Outside of a couple of plays here or there, it really does seem like this is a different Dwayne Haskins than what we saw out in Washington. The way that he has a lot more command, he's the ball is coming out way quicker and with a lot more velocity when you watch him play, and he's being way more decisive with the ball. It doesn't seem like he's thinking about playing football; he's just playing. He looks like he's back when he was in Ohio State. Okay. And I'm not saying that he deserves a big contract down the road, but I do think, especially moving forward, he's a sneaky guy that could possibly take over this starting role with Pittsburgh moving down the line past this season. 2022, 2023, we might be talking about Dwayne Haskins leading this Pittsburgh team in the future here.
And I think it's an audition for both Rudolph and Haskins. I
think this is the last chance for Rudolph.
And that could be, it's almost like an accelerated, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston thing going on here. Where, Rudolph will get say Ben goes down, Rudolph gets the starting job. He's been here a while. He knows the offense better than anyone else that's there, even Dwayne Haskins. However, the minute I think he begins to struggle, that's when, he may have a much shorter leash than one would be given, considering Ben Roethlisberger went down. And at that point, I could see Dwayne Haskins waiting in the wing, especially if his rep starts picking up and he continues to just look good, even with whatever reps he's been given. I mean, he can find himself starting sooner, much rather than later.
Yeah, I would not be opposed to it. From just the little that I've seen, I do think we are going to possibly see some Dwayne Haskins later on in the season, especially if things start going wrong and Ben's down. We might be seeing a couple of weeks worth of firsthand game reps with Dwayne Haskins.